20 items from the 1970s that failed. The 1970s gave us disco, bell-bottoms, and a parade of spectacular product flops. From wearable TVs to rocks as pets, these inventions promised the future but delivered facepalms. Ready to explore the weirdest ideas that crashed and burned? Let's dive into the bold, bizarre, and unforgettable failures of the 70s. 8-track tape cleaning kits. In the 1970s, 8-track tapes were king. Whether you were driving down the highway or hanging out at home, chances are you had a stack of these chunky cartridges and a clunky player to match. With so many people using them daily, companies jumped at the chance to cash in. Enter the 8-track cleaning kit. These little boxes promise to keep your music sounding crisp and your tapes running like new. The pitch was simple. Clean your tapes regularly, and they'll last longer. These kits came loaded with brushes, foam sponges, tiny bottles of cleaning solution. Some even had special cartridges you'd run through the player like a tape. The promise? Better sound and longer life for your favorite albums. But here's the kicker. Most of them didn't work. The brushes were often too abrasive, the cleaning fluids left sticky residue, and the sponges sometimes caused more damage than dirt ever could. Instead of preserving your collection, they often just made things worse, scratching tapes, gumming up players, and ruining sound quality. Word got around fast. Users ditched the gimmicks and just hoped for the best. By the early 80s, as compact cassettes began to take over the market, the need for 8-track cleaning kits faded into obscurity. Just another forgotten footnote in the era of analog audio. TV hat. Long before smartphones and tablets let us carry entertainment in our pockets, there was a bizarre attempt to take TV on the go. Introducing the TV hat. Released in the late 1970s, this oddball invention combined a regular baseball cap with a front-facing pouch that held a tiny television screen. The goal? To let you watch your favorite shows hands-free, anytime, anywhere. On paper, it sounded like something out of a futuristic dream. Imagine catching your favorite sitcom while lounging in the park, riding the bus, or even strolling around town. But in reality, it looked downright ridiculous. Picture someone wearing a cap with a mini screen dangling just inches from their face, squinting into a fuzzy image while wires trailed down to a clunky power pack. The viewing experience wasn't great either. The screen was small, grainy, and practically useless unless you were in perfect lighting. Extended use led to headaches, eye strain, and more awkward stares than compliments. Plus, it wasn't exactly portable. Unless you liked walking around with a hat full of wires and a battery pack on your belt. The TV hat flopped fast, never catching on with the public. It's now remembered as a hilarious relic of 70s tech optimism, proof that just because you can wear a TV on your head doesn't mean you should. Bell Picturephone. Let's rewind to the 1960s when Bell Telephone, now known as AT&T, was dreaming up what the future of phone calls might look like. At the 1964 World's Fair, they introduced a device that seemed straight out of the Jetsons, the Model 1 Picturephone. This early prototype let people do something unheard of back then. See the person they were speaking to. It was the birth of video calling, decades before Zoom ever existed. Fast forward to 1970 and Bell decided the world was ready. They officially launched the first commercial Picturephone. But there was a catch, a huge one. The service cost $160 a month, plus extra fees every time you made a call. That's more than $1,200 in today's money, just to have the thing sitting there, even if you never used it. And it wasn't exactly flexible either. You could only make one-on-one calls, so forget about chatting with the whole family or holding a team meeting. Still, Bell didn't give up. They released an upgraded Model 2, and even tried to market it to businesses in the 1980s. By 1992, they introduced the Videophone 2000 for home users. But consumers still weren't biting. Ironically, it took until 2019 for the Picturephone to make headlines again, when 2 old units sold for over $7,500. Better late than never? Downy Flake toaster eggs. In 1972, Downy Flake, best known for their frozen waffles, decided it was time to shake up breakfast. Inspired by the booming success of easy options like Pop-Tarts and toaster waffles, they introduced something brand new: toaster eggs. The idea sounded smart on paper: a frozen egg patty that could go straight into your toaster and come out hot and ready to eat. No pans, no mess, no time wasted. But once people actually tried them, the excitement quickly turned into confusion. Instead of a fluffy golden egg, what you got was a thick, round disc that looked more like a hockey puck than breakfast. The texture was dense, the appearance unappetizing, and the taste? Well, let's just say it didn't win anyone over. Consumers were already skeptical about pre-cooked eggs, and putting them in a toaster only added to the weirdness. Sure, fast food was on the rise, and people loved the idea of a quick bite before heading out the door. But they still expected it to taste like food. Toaster eggs didn't offer the warmth, texture, or flavor people wanted to start their day. By 1975, just 3 years later, the product was discontinued. Toaster eggs proved that breakfast innovation isn't just about speed. It's about striking the right balance between convenience and cravings. Sony Betamax. Back in 1975, Sony introduced a groundbreaking invention that looked like it was going to change home entertainment forever: the Betamax. It was one of the very first home video recording formats, and in terms of performance, it was ahead of its time. With sharp picture quality and rich audio, Betamax offered a viewing experience that blew people away. The technology was so solid that TV stations and production houses actually kept using Betamax tapes for professional work well into the early 2000s. But here's where things went south. Sony made a critical error. They kept the Betamax format exclusive. They wouldn't allow other electronics companies to produce Betamax machines or content. That decision meant fewer Betamax players on store shelves and a very limited selection of movies for people to watch at home. Then came 1976. JVC rolled out the VHS format, and while it wasn't quite as crisp in quality, it had something Betamax didn't: accessibility. JVC opened the doors, letting any electronics brand use the VHS format. That meant more players, more tapes, and a tidal wave of choices for consumers. The result? Betamax lost the battle. By 1988, it had just 10% of the market. It wasn't a failure of technology, it was a failure to share. And that made all the difference. Which of these 70s flops do you actually remember seeing or even owning? Let us know your story below. Polaroid Polavision. During the 1970s, Polaroid was a household name. Their instant cameras like the SX70 and One Step were everywhere, capturing memories and printing them right into your hand in just moments. Riding high on that wave of success, Polaroid decided to dream even bigger. In 1977, they set their sights on revolutionizing home movies with the launch of the Polavision system, hoping to compete with Kodak's already popular Super 8 film. At first glance, Polavision seemed like a game changer. It used a futuristic-looking cartridge that resembled a mini video cassette. After filming, you could pop it into a special tabletop viewer and develop the footage within minutes. They even designed it so the reels could be removed and played on traditional Super 8 projectors. It was a clever system, on paper. But once consumers tried it, the flaws were hard to ignore. The video quality left much to be desired. Unless you were filming under blazing lights, the footage came out dark, grainy, and lifeless. The colors looked flat, and worse yet, there was no option to record sound, something Kodak's Super 8 cameras already offered. Consumers quickly lost interest, and sales never took off. By 1979, Polaroid quietly pulled the plug. Today, Polavision kits pop up on eBay for about $25. A nostalgic reminder that even giants can stumble. Gerber Singles. In 1974, the folks at Gerber, yes, the same company that built its name feeding babies, decided to take a bold step. They figured if pureed food works for infants, why not bring the same convenience to adults? So they launched Gerber Singles, a line of ready-to-eat meals aimed at young, single adults living alone. The idea was simple. No prep, no cleanup. Just open the jar and dig in. But there was one big problem. Nobody wanted to eat baby food at the age of 25. Gerber Singles came in the same glass jars you'd recognize from their baby food line. The contents? Pureed meats and veggies. We're talking blended peas, mashed turkey, and ground beef paste, all with the same soft, mushy texture made for people without teeth. For young adults who had microwaves, stovetops, and functioning taste buds, this was a hard no. Imagine cracking open a jar of beige meat mush after a long day at work. Doesn't sound like a treat, does it? Gerber completely missed the mark. Adults didn't just want convenience, they wanted food with taste, texture, and something resembling adult dignity. Gerber Singles was mocked, avoided, and eventually pulled from shelves almost as fast as it arrived. A rare misstep from a trusted name, and one of the strangest product flops of the 70s. Sansui Quadraphonic sound system. In the early 1970s, the world of home audio was booming. Most people were rocking simple stereo setups, just 2 speakers, left and right. But Sansui had a much bigger vision. In 1972, they introduced something truly revolutionary, the Sansui Quadraphonic sound system. Instead of just 2 audio channels, it delivered 4, left, right, front, and back, pulling listeners into a full-circle sound experience that was way ahead of its time. At $200 back then, about $1,200 today, it wasn't exactly budget-friendly. But for serious music lovers, it promised an immersive, theater-like experience right in the living room. And Sansui wasn't the only one chasing the quadraphonic dream. Competing brands jumped in fast, even offering joysticks to let users steer the sound from one corner of the room to another. It felt futuristic, and some of the biggest rock legends thought so too. Artists like Aerosmith, the Eagles, and Eric Clapton released albums specially mixed for these 4-speaker systems. But despite the hype, most people weren't ready to overhaul their audio setups just to add a couple more speakers. It was pricey, complex, and honestly a bit confusing for the average listener. By 1978, quadraphonic sound quietly disappeared from the market. Today, those vintage Sansui receivers are collector's items, small monuments to a bold but short-lived sound revolution. LaserDisc. Before DVDs revolutionized home entertainment, there was the LaserDisc, a massive, shiny disc about the size of a vinyl record that looked like a supersized CD. Launched in 1978, it was way ahead of its time. The picture was sharper, the audio was cleaner, and for film buffs it offered something VHS tapes just couldn't. Cinematic quality right in your living room. At first glance, it felt like the future had arrived, but once people took a closer look, the cracks started to show. One major drawback? You couldn't record on it. In an era when taping your favorite TV show or copying home movies was a must, this was a big miss. VHS tapes, by contrast, offered both playback and recording, making them the more practical choice. Then came the price tag. LaserDisc players were expensive, and so were the discs. For the average family, it just wasn't worth the upgrade. Still, the format hung in there. Through the 80s and early 90s, it found a loyal fan base among movie collectors who loved the enhanced image and bonus features like director commentaries, something DVDs would later make mainstream. But once DVDs entered the scene, combining high quality, affordability, and recording ability, LaserDiscs faded fast. It was brilliant technology, but just a little too early. Thank you for watching. To continue with more content, comment 1 to let us know you're still following. Clairol Yogurt Shampoo. By the late 1970s, the natural living craze was in full swing. People were swapping out processed foods and synthetic products for anything that sounded clean, organic, or plant-based. In the beauty world, that meant ingredients like honey, lemon, and aloe were popping up on labels everywhere. Clairol, one of the biggest names in hair care, decided to jump on the trend, with a product that raised more eyebrows than sales. In 1979, they launched Yogurt Shampoo. That's right, yogurt. The logic? If yogurt was good for your health, why not your hair? The packaging was soft and wholesome, with creamy colors and friendly fonts that made it look more like a snack than a salon product. And that's where things went sideways. Consumers were confused, really confused. Some thought it was yogurt. Others weren't sure if they were supposed to wash their hair with it or mix it with granola. There were even rumors of people eating it by mistake. Unfortunately, once people actually tried the product, it didn't stand out. The formula was just okay. It didn't deliver stunning results, and the novelty wore off fast. Clairol quietly pulled it from shelves not long after. Today, yogurt shampoo is mostly remembered as one of the strangest beauty fads of the 70s. A well-meaning misstep that proved natural ingredients don't always make natural sense. World Football League, WFL. In 1974, a bold and ambitious new football league burst onto the scene, the World Football League, or WFL. It wasn't just another sports league, it was pitched as a direct competitor to the NFL, with the goal of creating a global football empire. The name alone suggested something massive, something international. But despite its swagger and grand ideas, the WFL would go down as one of the shortest-lived leagues in sports history. The league kicked off with 13 teams scattered across the U.S., from New York to Birmingham, and even as far away as Honolulu. But for a league calling itself World, it never made it beyond American soil. From the beginning, it was chaos behind the scenes. Poor attendance plagued most stadiums, team ownership was unstable, and financial mismanagement was rampant. Players, including high-profile NFL stars who had been promised lucrative deals, often found themselves unpaid or underpaid. The WFL limped through its debut season in 1974, barely finishing the schedule. The following year, the wheels came off completely. In the middle of the 1975 season, the entire league folded, leaving players, coaches, and fans stunned. In the end, the WFL was a cautionary tale, proof that a flashy launch and big promises don't guarantee staying power, especially when the money runs dry. Sauna Hot Pants. Hot pants were already turning heads in the 1970s, but someone decided to take the heat up a notch, literally. Enter the Sauna Hot Pants, one of the most bizarre weight loss fads to ever hit the market. These inflatable balloon-like shorts promise something almost too good to believe. You could melt away stubborn fat without diet, exercise, or even moving from your recliner. The idea was simple. Trap heat in your problem zones like your hips, thighs, and belly to make you sweat buckets. The more you sweat, the more weight you'd supposedly lose. Manufacturers claimed all you had to do was wear the shorts while lounging around, watching TV, maybe even snacking. No effort required, just inflate, sweat, and shrink. Sounds like magic, right? Well, that's exactly what it was. Magical thinking. The truth quickly caught up with the hype. While sweating might make you lose a little water weight, it doesn't melt fat. And wearing rubbery, inflatable shorts around the house? Not exactly comfy or stylish. It wasn't long before people realized these puffed-up pants were more joke than solution. Even worse, men found out the hard way that too much heat in certain places could do more harm than good. The Sauna Hot Pants craze deflated fast, just like the promise of easy weight loss. What's the weirdest product you ever saw growing up? Was it on this list or did we miss it? Share it below. Swing bike. In 1975, something wild and wobbly rolled onto the scene. The swing bike. Invented and patented by Ralph Belden just a year earlier, this wasn't your run-of-the-mill ride. What set it apart? It had not one, but two steering points. One on the front wheel like any regular bike, and a second one on the rear, right beneath the seat. That meant both wheels could move independently, giving riders a whole new way to cruise or crash. The swing bike wasn't built for speed or commuting. It was all about style and stunts. riders could weave through streets in snaky S-shaped motions, or ride with the front wheel on the sidewalk and the back in the street. It was flashy, fun, and looked like something out of a street circus. Kids who mastered it were instant neighborhood legends. But here's the catch. It was hard to ride. The dual steering system made the bike unpredictable, especially for beginners. One wrong move and you were eating pavement. The balance took real skill, and the learning curve was steep. Parents got nervous, kids got scraped up, and the novelty wore off fast. By 1978, the swing bike had swung its last. It may not have lasted long, but for a brief moment, it turned every ride into a performance. Twist and tone. The 1970s were packed with quirky weight loss gadgets, but one of the most memorable had to be the twist and tone. This little device promised to slim your waistline and melt off belly fat, with hardly any effort. No running, no lifting weights, and definitely no sweating. Just step on the disc, start twisting side to side, and let the inches fall away. Or at least that was the pitch. At first glance, it looked like something you'd find in your kitchen, a spinning lazy Susan. It was just a flat, round disc that rotated beneath your feet. You could use it anywhere, in your living room while watching TV, during a work break at the office, or even first thing in the morning. Just a few minutes a day was all it supposedly took to get that toned, trim figure. But the reality? It didn't deliver on the hype. Sure, it got you moving a little, but twisting in place wasn't going to torch calories or build muscle. Most people didn't stick with it, and many just felt awkward wobbling their hips like they were in a bad dance routine. Despite being rebranded and re-released several times since the 60s, the twist and tone never really found its footing. It's now remembered more for its gimmick than any real gains. Qube Interactive TV. In 1977, Warner Cable launched a bold experiment that aimed to transform how we watch television. It was called Qube, and it wasn't just about flipping channels, it was about interacting with them. This futuristic system allowed viewers to press buttons on a special remote to vote in live polls, pick outcomes in shows, and even decide which music videos would play next. Long before smart TVs and streaming, Qube gave audiences a taste of control. The idea was revolutionary, and the technology was cutting edge for its time. But it came with a lot of baggage. Installing Qube wasn't cheap, and it wasn't exactly user-friendly. Glitches were common, the interface was clunky, and many viewers just wanted to relax, not learn a new way to watch TV. For families used to flipping a single dial, the added buttons and options felt overwhelming. Qube was tested in a handful of cities, and while early adopters were intrigued, the masses weren't convinced. By the early 1980s, enthusiasm had dried up. The high cost of maintaining the service and its limited reach led Warner to quietly pull the plug. Even though it flopped, Qube was way ahead of its time. It paved the way for interactive media as we know it today, just a few decades too soon. Ford Pinto. In 1971, Ford introduced what was supposed to be the perfect car for tough times: the Pinto. With gas prices soaring and the country facing an oil crisis, Americans were looking for smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles. Ford jumped into the market with a compact car that was light, affordable, and easy on fuel. It was marketed as the budget-friendly answer to a nation in need of cheap transportation. But behind that friendly price tag and compact frame lurked a fatal flaw. The Pinto's gas tank was located right at the rear of the car, in a dangerously vulnerable position. In even low-speed rear-end collisions, the tank could rupture and horrifyingly catch fire or explode. Reports of fiery crashes began surfacing, and things only got worse when internal company memos were leaked. Those documents showed that Ford knew about the design flaw, but instead of fixing it, they ran the numbers and concluded it was cheaper to settle lawsuits than to redesign the vehicle. That decision sparked national outrage. The Pinto became a symbol of profit over people thinking, and Ford faced a flood of lawsuits and a crumbling reputation. What started as a solution to an energy crisis ended up as one of the darkest chapters in automotive history. Proof that cutting corners can cost lives. Do you think the Ford Pinto scandal changed how people trust big companies? Comment yes or no and tell us why. AMC Pacer. When the AMC Pacer rolled onto the scene in 1975, it was unlike anything else on the road. Billed as the car of the future, it featured enormous curved windows and a wide, rounded body that looked more like a rolling aquarium than a compact car. It was immediately dubbed the fishbowl on wheels, and the nickname stuck. AMC's vision was clear: build a small car that didn't feel small. The Pacer was designed to offer big car interior space in a compact package, giving drivers and passengers a roomy, airy experience. And in that sense, it delivered. Once you got past the novelty, the problems started to show. Despite its compact label, the Pacer was heavy. Really heavy. That made it sluggish and not very fuel efficient, which was a serious drawback during the 1970s fuel crisis. And then there was the look. Some people thought the futuristic shape was cool and forward-thinking, but many just thought it looked odd. While it did build a bit of a cult following and earned pop culture points after appearing in Wayne's World, it never caught on with the mainstream. Performance issues, polarizing design, and weak sales led AMC to end production by 1980. Today, the Pacer stands as a lovable misfit of 70s car culture. Bold, different, and just a little too weird to last. Clackers. In the early 1970s, if you were a kid, you either had a pair of Clackers or you desperately wanted some. These toys were everywhere, on playgrounds, in backyards, and at school recess. The concept was super simple: 2 solid acrylic balls attached to either end of a string. You'd hold the center and swing the balls up and down until they collided above and below your hand, making that signature clack-clack sound over and over. They were noisy, flashy, and honestly kind of hypnotic. It took a bit of skill to master the rhythm, which only made them more appealing. But what seemed like harmless fun quickly turned dangerous. The problem? Those acrylic balls weren't built to handle repeated high-impact collisions. Slam them together too hard or at the wrong angle, and they could shatter, sending sharp plastic shards flying. Injuries started popping up: chipped teeth, cuts to the face, even eye damage. What was supposed to be a fun toy turned into a real safety hazard. By the mid-1970s, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission had seen enough. Clackers were officially banned from store shelves. Parents breathed a sigh of relief, and just like that, one of the loudest toy fads of the decade came to a sudden, silent end. Smell-O-Vision. Smell-O-Vision. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi flick, right? The idea was simple but wild. Why just watch a movie when you could smell it too? While the original concept dated back to the 1960s, it got a second wind in the 1970s when a few brave and slightly eccentric minds tried to revive it. The goal? To transform movie night into a full sensory experience. Imagine the possibilities: catching a whiff of fresh popcorn during a snack stand scene, or the salty ocean breeze as the characters stroll along a beach. On paper, it sounded immersive and exciting. In reality, it was a mess. The tech just wasn't ready. Scent machines pumped out smells too early, too late, or sometimes not at all. Even worse, the odors would hang around long after the scene had ended. So while the characters were having a candlelit kiss, the theater still reeked of chili dogs and engine grease. Not exactly romantic. Audiences found it distracting. Theater owners found it expensive and frustrating. And so, after a few clumsy attempts, Smell-O-Vision quietly faded away by the end of the decade. Today, it's a punchline, a weird little chapter in cinema history that reminds us sometimes: more isn't better, especially when it stinks. The Pet Rock. In 1975, one of the most bizarre and brilliant fads in retail history hit store shelves: the Pet Rock. And yes, it was exactly what the name suggests. a regular smooth stone tucked inside a little cardboard box with air holes, nestled in straw, and accompanied by a tongue-in-cheek care manual. No feeding, no bathing, no barking, just pure low-maintenance companionship. The mastermind behind this oddball idea was Gary Dahl, an advertising executive who joked that regular pets were just too much work. So why not sell a pet that did absolutely nothing and never caused trouble? For only $4, you could own a perfect pet that wouldn't chew your shoes or shed on the couch. And believe it or not, the joke worked. Millions of people bought into it, literally. Within just a few months, over 1 million pet rocks were sold, turning Dahl into an overnight millionaire. But like any one-joke wonder, the laughter didn't last. By early 1976, people started looking at their pet rocks and realizing they'd paid for a rock. No tricks, no surprises, just a rock in a box. The craze vanished as quickly as it had begun. Still, the pet rock remains a legendary symbol of 1970s novelty culture. Proof that with the right spin, even a stone can make history. The 70s were packed with bold ideas and some unforgettable misfires. Which flop do you remember most? Drop it in the comments. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, be sure to like, subscribe, and check out more episodes from Past Not Past. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next Nostalgic Rewind.